Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and 3.3.5 is now in official PTU to the first wave of players, meaning that NDA is no longer in effect for this, so we can do some videos on it. And what this is happening right here in this video is actually me waking up in Hurston, and it's going to be the first look at Hurston. Now, actually, more specifically, Lorville. Now, Lorville is an absolutely massive place, so I'll come back and do some actual in-depth walkthroughs, but I do want to go ahead and show you guys how you can navigate around to this place. Now, instead of waking up in a little habby cube, you're actually kind of waking up here in what looks to be more like a short-term rental. You got guns in here, clothes. It almost looks like a kind of workers' quarters. There's not anything you can really interact with in here, but where we're at is in the kind of the metro center. There's a couple different areas that you need to really be aware of. You've got the TESA Spaceport, or TESA Spaceport. You've got the metro center, you've got the industrial side, and you end up having the perimeter. Now, the metro is basically what's in the center, and connecting that to all the different locations is going to be a rail system that you can end up using to get around. So what we're going to do is going to kind of show you how to utilize that rail system, how to get around. You'll notice the frames in the video are going to be a little bit choppy just because, you know, it's a massive place, it's a new build, it's not going to be a perfect performing patch. But we're going to go ahead and take this elevator down, which is going to end up putting us kind of into the core of the metro center. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that in the video. And as the elevator doors open, we're now on the first floor. Or the ground level. There's a desk over here that's going to populate in just a second, and there's some terminals there. I think this is where you can actually choose to rent a room if you decide to do so. Get a little Covalex drop box here, so maybe you can finish missions. You've got the big fans and ventilation system around, and now we actually end up coming outside where you get your first real good look at Lorville. You got a caterpillar taking off in the distance. You've got sewage pouring out of those pipes. You've got armed guards that you're going to see being a very, very common theme around Lorville. And then you're going to notice kind of these little particle effects that fly around in the air, which means that this is a really polluted place. And you're going to notice that there's things that, like on the walls and displays, like we're coming up on one here that says that it's satisfactory, but you should still wear a respirator if you have one. You don't really have any negative effects right now for not wearing one or wearing a helmet, but long term you might end up having that where maybe you get sick and have to deal with that. The nice thing about Lorville is that it has a lot of signs to kind of point you in the right direction, not only on the floors, but also up on the above. You can see there we're in the metro center. We'll end up coming back here in just a minute, but the actual transportation system, this guy. That's what we've deemed to be the bagheads. And that's what you're going to see a lot of people running around in. And that's kind of like a cheapo respirator that you can actually buy at a shop here. But speaking of this, here are your primary transit lines. You've got the perimeter line, which basically is going to take you to the outskirts. You've got the spaceport line, which is going to take you back to TESA Spaceport. And then the industrial line, which basically is only leading to lockdown areas. So it's not really all that active right now from what I can tell. So we're going to really focus on the spaceport line and the perimeter line. So we're going to go ahead and head out to the perimeter, which is kind of the area where you can get to a gate and actually pull like a rover and go driving out into the distance. The problem is that the displays right now for the rovers are not currently working, so it's a little bit limited in functionality. There's two different platforms here, some great signage like the hammerhead with the Jaws theme, and you can come out here, and again the signage helps you out a lot. One thing that's really important to keep an eye on is the timer. You see right there it says train arriving. And that shows you that this is the perimeter line, but it says train arriving. City Gates 06 is where you're going to be heading to. You're going to be heading out to the perimeter at City Gate 6. I believe there are 6 total gates. They kind of spawn out, and you can see the map down there. We're going to get a closer look at it. And ultimately, it kind of shows the layout. There is like oxygen containers, which I think you'll be able to rent later, or maybe just outright purchase. But you got your blue line, which is what connects the TESA Spaceport to Metro Center, and you've got the red line, which takes you from Metro Center to the perimeter, all the various gates. And that's a good place where you can go. If for some reason you can't spawn a ship here to get out of Lorville, There's a lot of restricted zones around Lorville where you can't actually fly over. So if somebody's going to come pick you up, you really need to go out to the gates to be picked up. The sign above the door says train arriving in 4, 3, 2, and there's the train. And then once those doors open, you'll actually have 30 seconds to get on the train and get out of town. And if you miss the train, you're basically going to be waiting 3 minutes for another one to come. Now, keep in mind, there are 2 different lines here, so if you miss one, I'd say probably check the timer on the other one because you might be able to get out of there a little bit quicker instead of just waiting on this one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fast forward to this train taking off, and then we will start talking again. So as those doors close, the train's going to go ahead and get in motion. This is something that I don't think is ever going to get very old because the train ride is long, but it's not super long. But you get to start seeing just the absolute scope of this game, the scale of this level or this base. You can see the big building off in the distance, the Hurston Dynamics building. You've got other train tracks running around depending on which gate you're going to. But ultimately what we're doing is we're heading out towards one of those exterior gates. You pass a lot of cool scenery. There's not much to do on the trains right now. You can sit down if you want to. I would suggest just standing at the doors and taking in the scenery. There's only one car right now that actually opens, so you're not going to be able to go up and down the train. That may change later depending on the amount of traffic that comes in here, but for now there's not a real need to do that just based on the amount of players that are in the servers today. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to where this train is going to drop us off. So what I just cut out was about 30 seconds. You can see there we're approaching gate 5, which is the one I selected to go through. Actually, I might have gotten gate 6, so that might have been off to our left, and gate 6 is actually on our right. Either way, just speaking about Hurston, I already mentioned that there's some restricted areas around Lorville. Hurston as a planet from Alazar is going to take you 12 minutes to jump. So you'll actually notice that where you actually exit the jump point, you see a lot of ships that are just kind of floating there, and that's probably players that are going to get a drink or use the restroom or make a hot pocket or do whatever. As far as actually entering the atmosphere, you enter the atmosphere at 100,000 meters, so it's a little over 3 times the size of a moon around the Crusader planet. And then, like I mentioned, there are the restricted areas, so you'll need to be careful about where you fly. So back to this, I just saw an exit sign. Again, I'm just following the directions to go down. In a lot of these places, you're going to see customs areas. There's going to be security areas. Just know most of those are not functional today. So you're not going to really be doing a lot of exploration and kind of going in and seeing what there is to see in customs. You're really just going to be doing the walkthrough right here. So we're going through customs. All of these, it doesn't matter if you go left or right. You automatically get to the same place. Got some cool new armor that's in. Again, lots of armed guards. These are where you would pull your ground vehicles. And again, these are not currently working today. At least I, to this date, Evocati and in this build, have not been able to get a ground vehicle to spawn yet. So I don't think that's in yet. But right there on the wall, once I turn around, you'll notice that there's actually going to say garage 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's where you would go to pick up your vehicle. I'll show you those garage doors in just a second. There's more of the pollution in the air. You can see we're at the perimeter. Now, that doesn't mean there's nothing else out there. I mean, there's still populated areas, and you're going to run into, structures, but there's big rocks and interesting trees. Those kind of corrugated metal doors over there are the garages. There's the big wall around the actual city of Lorville itself. That should be garages 3 and 4, with 1 and 2 being off to that side. And then basically what we're going to do now is actually just run back in. I'm going to fast forward to getting back on the train, but we're basically going to reverse what we just did to get back to the Metro Center. So I already mentioned that the Metro Center is kind of your core shopping area. It's where you're going to do most of your, city type of behaviors and activities. Once we actually get in there, you're going to notice that there's a couple different core things to do. One is going to be like residences, and that's kind of where we spawned at. I think they call them 619. You also have Leavesden Square, which is kind of like the equivalent of the bazaar at Leavesden. It's basically where you're going to end up going in order to do shopping. There's also going to be a hospital in there. There's going to be storage and reclamation. And again, the signs there pointing me to Leavesden Square. There's another area in there that you'll end up seeing me go to called Leavesden Station. There's not really much to talk about there because you can't get into it, so I'm not confident on what that's going to end up being at this point. But we'll end up showing it off. If you're wondering why I'm kind of hoofing it, it's for two reasons. One is this could be a very long video if I walked everywhere. Another reason for that is just because there's so much going on that it's easy for your frames to get bogged down. And I find it's a little bit better to keep moving instead of letting all of the different things that are spawning in actually bogging you down. Either way, we're going to be following our signs down towards Leavesden. And as we go down, you'll see there's a lot to focus on, so really utilize the signs. In there is really the primary square. This way is heading towards the actual Leavesden station. So this is the area I'm not as clear on. However, once we actually get in here, there are still things to do. You know, there's a restaurant over there. It looks just kind of like a little pop-up or a little small area to get some food. Tammany and Sons right here, this is a shopping store. It's a little bit different than the ones you're used to seeing. But, you know, you've got unique armor, you've got unique clothing, you've got things that you haven't seen. There are suits that you have seen, so it's not all different stuff. If you really like the look of the baghead and you want to get one of your own, boom, there's some right there you can get. There's also going to be the multi-tool, which you can get. You put on your other leg than your pistol. There's not a lot of functionality with it to this point, but ultimately when you're starting to be able to repair your ship and maybe heal other players, that might be an option for you. Once we get down here, this is where there's Leavesden Station. Again, you cannot walk through these turnstiles, so there's not a lot of functionality behind them at this point. But again, you can see how that's almost taking like the Area 18 approach to where you can probably see how they're going to add things later on. I was curious about this little alley because I hadn't gone down here before. There's not really anything down here except for like an armed guard and some barricades that are in your way. So you can come down and explore. I mean, it's all cool to see, especially for the first time. But, you know, as far as just pure usability or kind of gameplay, there's not much there for you. As we go back up, we're going to head back over towards the actual Leavesden Square because that's where most of the action is happening. You can see, actually, I think I make a pit stop over here. Again, it's just another area that will be built out later, but where it is today, there's not much to do. Yeah, so as far as Hurston is concerned, while we're kind of moving over to the square, there are several different outposts around the planet. The moons all have different outposts too. Another video I'm going to do here shortly is show you just a little bit of each of the moons, and I'll show you how you can actually get down to them and like what the different biomes are like, as well as show you some of the cooler places that I've actually been to on Hurston. So now we're kind of entering the square. Again, there's several different places you can go. One is McIntyre's and Victor's, I think it is, M&V's. This is your primary bar area on site. You can see there's booze signs around. Once we go in, you got people that are kind of lounging, but the actual bar area is a little bit further down. You've got booths that you can go to. You got the bar you can walk up to. Kind of a cool little meeting area. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up having a mission giver in there at some point. Past that, then I saw this NPC, so I ran over here. It's just another way to get in here from the Leavesden station area. But once you get past that, there are two other areas I wanted to show you in here. One of which is going to be your salvage and reclamation area. We're going to go ahead and head down there. I think it's called Reclamation and Disposal. And this is a really cool place. And there's a guy in there that you can talk to. He's clearly talking to you. The audio's not working right now, but he's got a familiar face. You got a chunk of an Avenger there. Off in the distance, you've got part of an Aurora up on a crane. So as you know, things like Reclamation come into play, and the Reclaimer is a functional ship. I think this will be an important place for you to come and visit. Get the little area where like the cargo will get pulled back in there. Here's this cat to talk to. You can see he starts talking back. There's no audio or anything though, so it doesn't really do you anything. But it is something that's going to be coming. And then we're going to go ahead and hoof it back out of here. And the next thing I'm going to show you is actually... what's it called? Maria of the Heart, Maria Queen of Hearts. I don't know. It's a hospital. Maria Hospital. That's what we'll call it. And it seems to be a big location. It's not functional today. It's got big doors that are in place that you cannot interact with. But again, you'll see that it's it looks like a site that you could actually come to, and if as far as medical gameplay is concerned, or maybe even a potential spawn point after you die, this seems like a likely candidate. One of the big themes, just as far as the design of this place is there's a lot of oversight. You're going to see signs that say, we're monitoring you, you're being recorded. You've got armed guards. There's signs that say, like, silence is complicity. Like, they're really encouraging people to kind of walk the line. So it's a very tense place overall. So what we're going to do now is actually head back to the transit system, utilizing the signs to get where we're going. Again, you can see I'm heading towards the Metro Center station. And then we're going to actually get on the Spaceport line and head back to TISA Spaceport area so I can show you how you would actually spawn a ship and some of the other cool things that are over there. Along with one kind of hilarious thing that I actually saw that was going to be in place. So we're going around, we're hoofing it, we're going to come up to the sign, and again you see Spaceport line or perimeter line. I want to get to TISA Spaceport, so we're going to go to the blue side. Again, up on the sign you can see to TISA Spaceport. Again, it's a theme. It's very well laid out where you need to go in order to accomplish what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead again because we're just going to be waiting for a train and hopping on it. Actually, there's a train right over there. But I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead to us arriving at that area, and we'll pick it back up. If you are wondering, this train right here is actually under a minute, so it seems to be quicker than the one that leads you out to the perimeter. But now that we're coming in, we're following the signs up top. You see it says exit, so we're going to start heading and following the exit signs. And then once we get out here, you're going to notice it's, again, a little bit fancier. It's a place that wants to put the good foot forward. It's like a city having a nice airport. It's almost like saying, hey, this is your introduction to our city. Let's make it a good one. The further you get out to the Metro Center and then to the perimeter line, everything here starts to degrade. So it's like this city of Lorville is putting their resources and efforts on the areas that people are going to be spending most of their time at. Those terminals don't work. I think those are going to be trading and shipping terminals for commodities and cargo. Once we get up here, you start to see some of the designs, nice signage. You've got plants. You've got these cool lighting, or the kind of light fixtures that hang from the ceiling. You've got an M50 out there, not a model, a full-size one. Got this really nice waiting area out here, and this is where it, again, starts to feel a little bit more like an airport or a spaceport. You got, Constellation out there. You got a Mustang. You can see other ships off in the distance, like that Caterpillar out there. These are the areas where you're going to be arriving and landing. And there's a lot of NPC ships and travel. This area right here, there's no signage. I'm not sure what it is. My gut says that this is like a VIP type of entrance or landing pad, which might make sense as to why there was the Phoenix out there. This is the ship shop, which is a very different experience from the Teaches. But before we get into that, I want to show you something hilarious that I happened to stumble upon. I heard some gunfire, and this guy was getting lit up by armed security, who, as you can see, does have working weapons, even though they're not actually killing him. He's just a big blood-filled bag. My frame rate really started to drop. I thought this was an NPC that kind of wigged out, but as on my way out of here, you'll see why I don't think that's the case. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Heading into New Deal, that is the ship shop. You've got nice storage out here, or signage, I mean. You've got, again, another M50. Inside, you've got a Prospector, you've got an Aurora, you've got an 85X, you've got golden models around here. You can actually purchase these things, so you can see I get a buy option over it with a price. And in the back, I think, is one of the really interesting things here, to where you've got desks and salespeople. I'm curious if they have limited displays inside and you sit down and interact with a salesperson to order a new ship as opposed to actually just buying one off the lot. Again, that's gameplay that's going to be determined, but I think that would be really cool. And once you get outside, you can see that you are indeed outside. You've got the floating signage for TISA Spaceport, and then, ships that are flying around. Again, this is the guy that's getting lit up. You can see that he's starting to bow and clap at people, so that's why I think this was actually a player that found an interesting little bug and is having a little bit of fun, which made me laugh pretty good the first time I saw it and started recording. So once we actually leave a New Deal, we start heading towards the area where there are ship hangars. There's also going to be a commercial area too. So let's say you want to hop on a Genesis Starliner as opposed to flying yourself somewhere. You've got interplanetary and domestic gate options down there. Right here, you end up having a like a rental station. So I think if you wanted to rent a ship, you could talk to this guy and rent one, as opposed to actually just using a terminal or your mobi-glass or something like that. It just seems like they're fleshing out some of these mechanics. These are the elevators to the hangar. So you got, 246, 351. Those are all over there too. And then down here, these are the non-functional gates, but again, interplanetary gates if you wanted to get on one, a domestic gate over here. So I'm not sure what's going to qualify as domestic. I'm guessing that's anything that's within the Stanton system, whereas interplanetary may actually be, outside of the system. I don't know. Interplanetary seems like Hurston to Crusader would qualify, but either way. And then lastly, these are the ship terminals where you actually come up and can spawn your ship. I had a queue, and I wanted to get this video up so you can see I'm actually going to hit this button and it's going to say I'm in queue. I didn't stick around long enough to see if the ship actually spawned in, but this may just be an indicator that I might need a rescue a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this video up. If you guys have questions about Lorville, let me know. I know that was a ton of information, but I promise I'm going to come in and do a lot more content here soon. A lot of videos coming out over the next couple days, so stay tuned for that. So, like I said, let me know if you have questions. Stay tuned for more, and have a great night. Take care.